Hey guys, what's up? This is week 50, almost at 52, almost been doing these weekly shows for a whole year. I got like 7 reviews all by my lonesome today. Update, Q&A, the typical stuff. I just wanted to open this up. It's not going to be a real review. Everybody knows my favorite movie is Day of the Dead. And I'm not one of those guys that gets real hard on remakes. If it looks bad, I just won't watch it. I won't be into it. But the Day of the Dead Bloodline, the second remake of the 1985 classic George Romero movie, came out. And I didn't want to see it. I thought the trailer looked better than the last one, but it still didn't look particularly good. When I'd love to see the original script made by like somebody like Nicotero or Tom Savini or any of those guys. But yeah, so it popped up on Netflix, and I was like, okay, this is the where I'm willing to go with this one. So I started it, and I noticed that I don't dislike the Evil Dead remake, but I noticed that it was a foreign director who there was these lapses in understanding of the original Evil Dead, like how the original Evil Dead is awesome because it's a Lovecraftian type demon. It's not just a satanic, like Catholic Christian demon, which isn't very scary to me. That's why I thought that the Evil Dead remake was a little weak on that front. Not bad, but just a little bit, weak on that front. And this is the same kind of deal. We have this foreign director, I believe he's from Spain, and there is a language barrier translation here. Everybody talks very strange. All the dialogue is awful. All the characters are awful. All the acting is awful. There's a lot of foreign actors and some really good foreign actors or American actors that can change their accents and do them really well. Tom Hardy's great at that. A lot of guys that can change accents and do amazing accents. Gary Oldman. All sorts, but a lot of the actors in this movie, wherever they're from, they can't do it. They don't make believable Americans. They're awful. The acting's atrocious in this movie, to be honest. The characters are atrocious. The script is a mess. The movie starts off at saying something like it starts off with the outbreak. So you're like, okay, they want to catch your attention with chaos. And then it says 4 hours earlier. And you say, okay, they're going to go back and show you how they got to this point. Not very Day of the Dead because it was post-apocalyptic. Whatever, doesn't matter. And then it says 4 years later. It's like, come on, guys. Are you going to write yourself like that just so you can start the script with excitement? Why not just make a good script in the first place? Like Larry Cohen says, you can write when you're writing the script, you can do whatever you want. You write yourself in a corner, you get yourself out in a smart way because it's your damn script. Doesn't matter. You can fix it if you're a great writer. And it's just, they wrote themselves in a lot of corners and then just whatever they were doing. It goes into the, obviously 4 years later, and they're in a compound. There's a lot of survivors in this one, soldiers, and she basically is like a student that is the only medical person, and she's doing all these elaborate kind of experiments, or wants to do these elaborate experiments. There's a rape zombie, or a zombie that does a 28 weeks later thing where it stalks one person, is obsessed with them, and tried to rape them earlier. It's really dumb. It's really stupid. I will give the movie props for having some splatter. It has a lot of splatter. The zombies look fairly good. I mean, they're nasty looking. They're rotting. The blood flies. There's a lot of neck wounds. When there is CGI, it's not particularly good. It's just a really painful event to get through. I don't really want to say this is a review, but I'm going on way longer than I expected to. Just it's on Netflix. Check it out. I mean, you're already paying for it. You might as well watch it if you're interested in it. I just wouldn't give them money. I mean, I just personally wouldn't give them money. I wish the filmmakers well, but and anybody that goes out and makes a movie, God bless them to a certain extent. But this is not something I want to see. It's just strange that someone would want to take. It's just like, are they fans of George Romero, or like, are they not? Like, it's just at that point when someone would remake Night of the Living Dead for the 100th time, and knowing that none of this money is going to go to George Romero or the estate, it's like, are you really a fan? Are you really inspired? Are you really just trying to get a quick cash grab? It's just nonsense, and it's just, I don't have respect for that. I mean, as an actor that loves horror movies, or a director or somebody like that, if somebody, let's just say I was a big-time director or something and somebody approached me, I would just have no interest in it unless it was the original script with a bunch of the original people involved. And it's just nonsense. It's just bad. I guess if somebody's going to do it, he figured, why not him? But it's bad. It's just a stain of crap. Awful. Awful. I just can't say stay away from it enough. But sorry to start off so negative. I don't even like being negative typically, but I just wanted to give everybody a warning that this one's pretty bad. And I don't typically do that. I mean, the Cabin Fever remake, it is what it is. I didn't like that either, but it's not good, but this is much worse. I will give the credits for the special effects guys, man. I'm sure they worked on a budget. You could tell it's filmed in another country, Bulgaria. You can tell. It just... And stuff like Mayhem was too, and a lot of Joe Lynch's movies, and it doesn't really show through in those movies. Those work well, but I know that understanding going to different countries to shoot something works well for these movies to get a budget, but this one is just not good at all. Okay, the first one I'm going to review is from Olive Films. This comes out, or will be out, April 24th, I believe. This is Joe from 1970, from the director of Rocky and the Karate Kid movies. So yeah, I had never seen Joe. This is funny because I had heard of Joe all the way back almost when I was 19 years old, so 13 years ago, over a decade ago. I had a college professor told me the first time I ever heard the F-bomb was in the movie Joe, and Peter Boyle said it, and that always stuck with me. That always resonated with me when I wanted to see Joe, because it obviously was an impactful movie of the 70s, and I feel that I had not heard many people talk about it, and this movie is very relevant today. It feels like it was cut out of the headlines, to be honest. It is a very unique story. It's about generational divide, racism, violence, letting your that hate or that that stuff take you over and just become something like a monster. And I love the classism in this movie, the class divide, the generational divide in here. The plot follows Bill. He's a rich, successful businessman, and his daughter is Susan Sarandon, a very young Susan Sarandon, and he goes, she ODs on some drugs. She's in the hospital. Him and his wife go to get her stuff from her drug-dealing boyfriend. Bill's the only one who has the guts to go up. He goes up, and he ends up getting in a scuffle with the drug-dealing boyfriend, and something obviously tragic happens. In kind of a daze and a panic, he goes into this local bar to order some drinks. He's kind of guilt-struck, and he's out of it. And Peter Boyle's this factory worker, and he's in there, and he's drunk, and he's rambling and ranting, similar to like Vic Morrow did in the Twilight Zone segment by John Landis. And he's talking about, derogatory terms towards African Americans, homosexuals, liberals, and he's going on and on and on about hippies and drug culture and how much he hates them and how disrespectful they are and how he'd like to kill them. And Bill opens his mouth and says, "I just did." And he plays it off as a joke, but it sticks with Joe. Something's up with Joe. And he realizes something strange is going on. A couple days later, he sees in on the newspaper and the news that someone was murdered in that area, and he puts two to two together, looks up Bill, and they form this kind of strange relationship where they kind of learn a lot from each other. And what Bill did awakened something in Joe, where he says, I say all these things, but you actually went out and did it. You actually killed one of these people that I fantasized about killing for years. And this kind of emotion that Joe has and these thoughts that he has kind of open it up in Bill, who's just like, he's conservative and he keeps to himself and he doesn't let these emotions take the better of him. But it shows that this deep-seated anger and resentment and hate towards what he has towards his daughter's generation is in there. And it comes out. And of course it builds and builds in these two. And their interactions are very awkward because they come from two different worlds. And they have these double dates with their wives. And you can see how the guys treat their wives, how different they actually are. And but Bill has this same kind of resentment you see at times against his wife that Joe has against his, and it's very interesting. And the awkwardness and the stuff that they say is absolutely funny at times because it is true in a lot of ways. There are people like this, and there is this emotion in a lot of people, and in almost everybody there's this hateful spirit at times that if you are not careful, it can take you over. And that's exactly what kind of happens in Joe. It makes all these statements about the culture at the time and how the people are completely different, and it doesn't paint the so-called hippies in a great way either. It doesn't paint anyone in a great way. It paints everyone as a complex capacity for violence and a lot of resentment and misunderstanding. And at times these two go out and they start to merge in with this younger generation, and they smoke marijuana, they have partake in a sex party. It's very strange, and you think that the tide may be turning, but there's this lovely foreshadowing in this movie earlier when Joe's wife tells him that an African American couple moved in, and Joe goes down to the cellar and he starts to clean one of his many guns. It's just a very unique movie. It's a great character study, and it's such a great, interesting thing to see how these different types of people interact. And it's got one of those classic 70s endings that is such a gut punch that will stick with you for days. And it leaves on such a note that is very memorable and very, very hard to swallow, that you'll be thinking about it for days. It's awesome. I wrote a review about it. I think it's a masterpiece. There's only a trailer on the disc. It looks really good. It sounds really good. Olive really knocked it out of the park with this one. I was very impressed with this movie, and it's a brave, bold performance and a very smart movie that a lot of people should be talking about. I think it's freaking a masterpiece, to be honest. It just blew me away, man. It just don't make them like that anymore. And it's funny that this movie is very political and has all these things in there, but it never feels like it's necessarily forced down your throat. It's just, it paints this picture and you can interpret it how you will, and it's obvious, but I mean, it's just it's so well set up. Everything is set up perfectly, and the way it plays out, it's just, I can't see it playing out any other way after I've seen it, but it's really hard to know how it's going to play out while you're watching it. Great stuff.
Hey Joe, don't it make you want to go to war once more? Hey Joe, why the devil did we go to war?
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you to meet Joe. This is what the American press say. The movie Joe must surely rank in impact with Bonnie and Clyde. Time magazine.
Money don't mean nothing to them. Motorcycles, marijuana.
You got love, you don't need this stuff.
How do they fall in love?
A hippie pimp.
Lone Ranger.
Cowboys and Indians.
Hopalong Cassidy.
Not really fags, but close.
What he like is to have
A little on the side once in a while.
I'll drink to that.
He looks like a truck drunk.
Screwing and grooving.
Joe, do me a favor. Give us all a break.
4 stars. Devastatingly funny. New York Daily News.
100 milligrams of thorazine in the butt does wonders.
Get your pants on.
It's your ass now, Compton. Easter orgies.
She's anti-fetish.
That's Jap food.
The best Chinese restaurant in Astoria.
A rip snorter. A triumph. Judith Christ, New York Magazine and NBC TV.
Your whole life is one big crock of
He doesn't shop at Kimball's, Joe.
junk is junk, right?
And let's get the hell out of here.
Hey Joe, why the devil did we go to war before?
Now, all over Britain, they're raving about Joe. A very savage film. Very funny. Scores a triumph. The Observer.
These kids are getting more than we ever did.
Just the credit cards, man.
You think I'm chicken? This is my beauty. All right, my friend. They're all screwed up, so they're screwing up the culture.
We didn't make them feel old-fashioned like the kids make us feel old-fashioned.
That's enough.
Crashes into the Oscar class. A gripping piece of entertainment. Evening News, Edinburgh.
Hey, why don't you get a haircut?
Maybe your buddy ought to stick to golf.
From the balls out.
Colder than a witch's tit out. Man, it's no good. It's panther piss. Come on. Get with the Pepsi generation.
The crazy thing about Joe is that
I could blackmail you.
A seething mass of rage, terror, and guilty envy. Sunday Telegraph.
You just balled me. You don't believe me?
you done a real groovy job on her.
Come on, bitch, bastard. No, don't shoot me.
Takes over where Easy Rider and Midnight Cowboy left off. Forceful, shocking. Wakefield Express.
No, you can't stop looking. You gotta keep looking. I like to look at it once in a while.
You see the knife going in.
You know, we get friendly. We infiltrate them.
The best film so far this year. The Sun.
Look, all my life, I ain't never been to an orgy. I hope I'm not out of line.
You just beat the world's speed record.
You don't need to tell me. I seen it on TV all the time.
Look, she's a bum tripper.
Oh, you're gonna kill me, too!
It's a humanitarian act.
Yeah.
All right, the next one here is from Mondo Macabro. This is a Paul Naschy directed movie. It also stars him. This is the first time this one's ever been released stateside. It's never had a release. It used to be called The Traveler. It is the Devil Incarnate now, which kind of gives away what's going on here, but it's fairly obvious right out the get-go. Paul Naschy, this takes place in, I don't know what decade, but medieval times necessarily, kind of, or with the time of lords and everything. I always mix them up. I'm like 17, 18, no, 1600, 15. I'm bad with my history, okay, guys? But yeah, Paul Naschy is this kind of a traveler who goes around and he exploits and he takes advantage of everyone he can. He goes out to do as much evil as he can, and he's full of sin. And he ends up taking this young man under his wing as he's his master, and the two start this relationship where he starts to corrupt him, and you see this guy go from like a naive young man to like this vindictive old man, the vindictive man. But their exploits take him everywhere, from a convent, a monastery I should say, all the way to a whorehouse. And Paul Naschy in this is having fun. He shows his range. He at times acts mentally handicapped, and as inappropriate as it is, it's played for laughs, and he's just such an evil bastard, and he does these horrible things to people, taking advantage of these women. And then he at one point he convinces this deformed woman whose husband neglected her that he's here to make her happy, and they have sex, and then afterwards he makes her feel awful for her body and for what she's done, and even robs her. And you're just like, man, this is so cruel, but it's so bitterly true, and it makes a statement on human nature in general. And Paul Naschy does it in a comedic, kind of dark, satirical way, and it really works. The movie looks great too. Most of it's shot in the day, so there's lots of nice, like, it just looks really crisp. Mondo did a great job remastering this movie. I had never seen it. You know what? I have tons of Paul Naschy stuff, and I'm a fan after this one, but I haven't really dived into him. I know he was a very iconic character, and he played a wolfman, a mummy, a vampire. He's done it all, and played a werewolf several times, directed many movies as well. But he gives a great performance in this movie. He is funny and evil, and his smile, you can just tell he's really getting into it and really enjoying it, and burning out some demons in this movie as well. But I love the acting. I love the interaction between him and his servant, and it is inappropriate at times, but it never crosses that, it never becomes super exploitative, although there is exploitative moments, and it becomes sad at times and tragic as well. But the all-around message is, man is not good, and man may be worse than something even supernatural. There's a lovely shot in this movie with the composition looks great, where he, he's tied up to this cross, and there's these pillars on the side, and you see the beautiful background, and he's screaming and, cursing and saying, I can't believe that you would die for these people, and yada, yada, yada. But it's just a great movie. Really enjoyed it. The features on here are great. Troy Horwath, who's writing a book about Naschy, is on the special. He does a commentary, which is very informative. This guy knows everything. There's an interview with David Roca on here, which is great, the actor in here. There's interviews with his kids that talk about Naschy, his pastor's introduction with Paul Naschy. That's not his real name. His real name is a Spanish name. It's longer. I don't want to embarrass myself any more than I have already embarrassed myself. But there's a written review of this one, too, over the Screaming Toilet page, as well as for Joe, and a couple upcoming movies I'll be reviewing. But really great stuff. Looks great. Sounds great. Just a gem that I didn't expect to be as good as it was. Okay, the next one is from Severn Films. This is Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals by Joe D'Amato, Sleaze Master, according to the cover. Yeah, Joe D'Amato, what can I say about him? He did stuff like Beyond the Darkness, Anthropophagus. He's done tons and tons of movies. And, you know, hit or miss, Joe D'Amato is going to bring the sleaze, and he's going to cross some boundaries. You know, he's one of these guys, after seeing interviews, that I actually like him better than a lot of his movies. He started off as a cinematographer, so the cinematography, even on his budget movies, actually looks fairly solid. Emanuelle, if you guys aren't familiar, Emanuelle is this character who appeared in a bunch of Italian movies. She basically is a reporter that goes to get scoops and has sex with everybody that she comes in contact with, most of the time played by Laura Gemscher. This one also stars her husband, Gabrielle Tinti, who's in a bunch of stuff, Donald O'Brien, Susan Scott, who's known better as a different name than that. So you got some genre favorites in here. Donald O'Brien from The New Gladiators and a slew of other stuff. Another zombie cannibal movie, I should say, Zombie Holocaust as well. Susan Scott's in tons of giallos and whatnot. So yeah, it's your typical cannibal movie, except it's Emanuelle this time. She goes in the jungle to find out where this cannibal came from that she met in an insane asylum when she was undercover there trying to get a story. So she gets the help of a professor. She heads over to the cannibal jungle, and sex and insanity ensues, and of course cannibalism. I didn't notice any animal cruelty in this one. Well, a lot less than usual, if there is any. So that's a plus for a lot of fans of these. I'm sure a lot of people like the jungle adventure stuff, but they hate the animal cruelty, and I don't blame them. But yeah. This one is not my favorite of the cannibal movies, but it delivers on the depravity. There's this scene in here that is pretty gratuitous with this poor nun who is stripped, her nipples cut off and eaten, and then she is disemboweled. And that scene, I think that Joe D'Amato really captured its horribleness by when she's screaming and being like torn apart on the tree. The camera looks to the sky, and you feel like you're her for a second, looking up to like the tree line at like a desperate hope for survival. But it's just really kind of a demented scene, and of course, you know, people get like ripped apart and stuff like that with like ropes and everything. Donald O'Brien and Susan Scott are up to no good immediately. They're all sweaty, and Donald O'Brien's impotent. So we have this ridiculous sleaze factor in here, and of course Emanuelle is sleeping around with everyone she can come into. She screws in the jungle, she screws in the city, she screws men, she screws women. It's just exploitative as all hell. Very sleazy, very softcore-ish. The score is wonderful, way better than the movie deserves. It's by Nico Nico. Sorry, he was a singer in Italy. He also did the score for Zombie Holocaust. His stuff is really beautiful, very memorable, and I love the score in here, to be honest. It's the movie all around is okay. It's very sleazy. It's never boring. It's not great. It's gross. It's just really nasty, to be honest. But the features are great on here, too. We have an interview with Donald O'Brien, which was nice. Talks about his career. He talks about all the directors he worked with. We have an interview with the composer, which I loved because he talks about lots of stuff. And you know, you don't really get to hear composers talk a lot about their careers. He does a tremendous job, and it was very interesting. There's an archival interview with Laura Gemscher on here, and some other ones with the actresses, which is great. Some of the ones that I've never seen interviews with. So pretty much the whole cast, except Susan Scott, is on here talking about it. Anybody who's still alive. But if you like this kind of stuff, it looks fairly solid for what it is. There's some really bad day for night in this movie where you're like, man, is this supposed to be day for night, or is this just dark, underexposed day? I can't tell, but I don't really care, and I don't think you will either. And it's one of those deals where you have all these like people that are helping them, and you're like, he's dead next, he's dead. You can almost predict who's going to die next in this one. Predictable, but you know what you're getting into, and they don't skim out on the sleaze or the gore. So if you like Italian cannibal films, Severn did a pretty good job in this one.
During the full moon, they sacrifice their victims to the goddess of the waters.
E poi così mi hanno cominciato a prendere per questi filmetti come di serie C.
No, però tutto sommato mi sono trovata sempre bene, specialmente con gli attori, con la troupe, con i registi. Era sempre una bella famiglia, una bella esperienza.
E quindi secondo me io mi sono sempre sforzato di fare un pezzo del film, un pezzo che deve essere quello che poi può avere più o meno fortuna, quello.
È l'unico che non ho scopato nel film, e questo mi ha scocciato.
E poi la scena che dovevamo andare via, e l'altro arrivava fino qua. Quindi ci sono anche le storie, possono essere l'omosessualità che non neghiamo, cioè nelle carceri esiste, no?
Non era un film che io amavo molto, cioè sono quei film che si fanno perché te li commissionano e tu li fai.
Okay, guys, we got another one from Severn Films. This is Violence in a Woman's Prison. This is another Emanuelle flick. Yeah, man, Severn brought out 2 Emanuelle flicks. This time she goes in a prison, and this time it's directed by Bruno Mattei, who did all sorts of sleazy, probably considered crummy. I love them, though. Hell of the Living movies, Hell of the Living Dead, Rats, Nights of Terror, all sorts of stuff. The Other Hell he worked on. I believe he actually directed that one. But yeah, he did as well. So yeah. This one we have Laura Gemscher, again, with her husband, real-life husband, Gabriel Tinti, who's in this. And we have Franca Stappi, who is memorable in this one, just as not as memorable as she was in Beyond the Darkness. And we have Laureen DeSalle, who pops up in stuff like Cannibal Ferox, House on the Edge of the Park, a slew of others. So, yeah, we have a nice little genre Italian cast in here that people will be familiar with. It's a woman in prison movie, and it is one of the damn sleaziest movies I've ever seen. It's almost like they looked at this and were like, hey, guys, we have a checklist of we want to defend people. We want lesbian rape. We want straight rape. We want, implied rape with a stick on a homosexual character. We want homosexual stereotypes. We got to have torture. And we got to have sadism. We got to have all this kind of stuff in here. And of course, it's a Bruno Mattei flick, so we got to have rats biting people. That somehow we shoehorn that in because Bruno Mattei cannot get away from rats attacking people. But yeah, it's really, really, really sleazy and debaucherous. And what's funny about it is at times there's a genuine or a seemingly genuine moments of character development that try to make you feel. There's this point where the doctor who's in the film, let me get to the plot first. It's very simple. Emanuelle goes undercover in a prison to kind of, show that the mistreatment of prisoners to a humanitarian group and get better treatment for prisoners. They find out who she is, and they get mad about it. And the sadism continues. That's pretty much the plot. I imagine that Emanuelle's always getting herself into troubles like this. But, yeah, there's moments, like I said, that have genuine kindness to them, which I don't know if the whole movie was supposed to be genuine, but it's just so, the rest of the movie is so intense and sleazy and gross that when these moments happen, you're like, wow, it's kind of trying to be a serious drama at times. When one of the characters is, on his deathbed and the doctor's trying to comfort him, it seems genuine. There's this character called Pillar, or she's an older prisoner and she's always been obedient, and she's just kind of lives a sad existence in this woman's prison, and she has a pet cockroach. And what happens to her at the end when she finally stands up to one of the prison guards, played by Franca Stappi, who's very, very very intense, the cruelest of them all, and her facial expressions just scream monster. She's great in this. But those moments seem genuine. Most of the characters in here, they pack in a lot. Most of them are one-dimensional, of course. just there to get killed in mean-spirited ways. And they do have character arcs, although most of them are resolved when they die, and which is impressive to resolve anything with these characters. But we have, the typical crooked guards. We have tons and tons of nudity. Guards saying, "You'll have sex with me," and there's just really strange moments. So many strange, cruel moments where they bring in this young prisoner, and they bring in 2 male prisoners and have them rape her while the wardens of the male prison and the female prison are secretly watching and getting turned on by it and having sex. It's like, now that is some creative cruelty there. It's almost like an art in being that cruel and creative to get to shoehorn these really exploitative things in there. And there's all sorts of stuff. But, I mean, Lorene DeSale's good. Franca Stoppi's good. Laura Gemscher, man, she sleeps with some people in this one, too. There's lots of nasty rape scenes. There's lots of lesbianism. Tons and tons of nudity. And lots of crazy moments. But there's moments, like I said, the dramatic moments that somewhat work. But then there's ones that just don't work at all. This one character gets killed in a way, and another character freaks out, and everybody's standing around her just watching. And she screams for like 30 seconds and then runs off. And the guards don't attempt to stop her. She just runs all the way up the hill. And then, of course, there's all these dogs waiting for her and guards holding the dogs. And she's on their knees sobbing and screaming. There's just dogs barking in her face. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And this whole scene is pitched at like an 11. And it's just not working. But it comes off as kind of funny on accident. But yeah, the movie is a typical woman in prison movie. But it's just even more sleazy than usual, man. And I think it crosses the line at times. If you like the woman in prison movies, you should dig this one. If it doesn't, skim out on any of that debaucherous stuff that you've probably all grown to love, and you probably messed up your psyche a little bit. But yeah. On the disc, we have an archival short interview with Bruno Mattei, which is okay, ported over from the old DVD from Shriek Show. And then we have a really new, really awesome new interview with Claudio Fragasso and his wife, who is a screenwriter. And they both worked uncredited on tons of stuff. Claudio directed Troll 2 and Monster Dog and After Death, and she worked on a lot of these movies as well. But they both went uncredited in several movies. I think that he was like a co-director on this as well. But they talk about, the business, talk about this movie, talk about how they are uncredited in tons of stuff. It's very interesting, and I love it. And it's new, and you don't get to see that kind of insight with a duo that was both making these movies in there. And she actually wrote this movie, which blows my mind because it's a female perspective on a woman in prison movie. So, and it's so sleazy. It's even sleazier than the other stuff, and it has these gross, crazy moments where somebody dumps a crap bucket on somebody, and somebody's put in this big steel tub, and they beat on it and hurt it is to torture them. So I mean, anybody, I guess, can write this kind of stuff, but it's nice to see it's actually from a female perspective on a woman in prison movie, which I didn't know typically happened, because it is sleazier than anything I've seen in a long time. So Violence in a Woman's Prison, if you like the movie, it's got a couple nice features on it, and it looks pretty good. I was kind of impressed. I thought it looked better than Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals, actually, and for a low budget woman in prison movie, that's pretty damn good, especially from Italy, because some of their prints are just always kind of, you get what you get. But good job, Severn, really enjoyed it. Yes, the next one is from Arrow. It is the deluxe edition of Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Everybody knows why the population's going down. Everybody loves Killer Klowns, okay? I'm a big fan of it. A cult movie, of course, by the Chiodo brothers. What can I say about Killer Klowns? I've always loved this one. I've had the old DVD. I had the old Blu-ray. But I'm really happy to see Arrow put it out in a new restoration. It looks great, and it's lined with a bunch of features, tons and tons of features. All the old features are on here, and there's some new stuff as well. But Killer Klowns from Outer Space definitely plays into the 50s style, inspired by the 50s style science fiction movies done in the 80s film, which I love those movies. Night of the Creeps, Deadly Spawn, the remake of The Blob, the remake Invaders from Mars. Like, I love these 50s movies that have these 80s like style special effects. And it's just, you can tell, like, they're the younger guys that grew up watching this stuff, and they're growing up and they're making their movies. And those are some of the ones that are filled with a lot of passion and love. And Killer Klowns has that. And also, it has two favorite character actors of mine, John Vernon and Royal Dano. John Vernon plays this this crooked cop, and his voice and his intensity brings a lot to the movie. He's also very hilarious in it. Royal Dano plays your typical kind of crazy, backwoods drunk that he played in movies like Ghoulies 2 a couple years before this, Drum, Messiah of Evil, Outlaw Josie Wales, the Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid. Royal Dano's always popping up on Something Wicked This Way Comes as either a crazy guy or a drunk guy or some sort of combination of both. And he doesn't, let you down here. He's definitely that. But I just adore this movie. What happens is a meteor strikes, of course, in your typical fashion, and these kids are at Makeout Lane. A couple go to check it out, and it appears to be a giant circus tent there that popped up. And what's in the circus tent may look like clowns, but they are definitely not clowns or friendly clowns. They are aliens from space that come to get a bite to eat, and they're going to pack in this town and eat as many of them as they can before they launch back up in space. But of course, a group of kids and the sheriff are going to try to stop them. The clown's design is super unique, and the Kyoto brothers did a lot of stop motion growing up, and doing lots of crazy effects. They did the effects for Ernest Scared Stupid, which I love. They did the effects on the trolls. I adore those trolls, and they look similar in this one. And they made these unique clowns that forever are in the zeitgeist now, like they're everywhere. All the clowns after this were inspired by this, and these ones are so much better. All the little clowns have their own personalities. They all look great. They have tons and tons of gags. This movie has unlimited amount of gags with clowns killing people, and it is silly, it is fun, it is campy, and if you can't get into that spirit, then you're not going to enjoy it. Even the acting on a lot of the lesser known actors is super campy and super silly. You'll laugh out loud on a lot of their lines because you're just like, this is ridiculous. But it's just a really campy, fun, goofy movie that is and although it is like the ones I mentioned previously, it is one of a kind. I would say that the closest in tone is Night of the Creeps, although that's more done seriously as well. But yeah, like I said, I love the designs of the clowns, and I love the gags in here. There's some moments where, what you boys doing with them pies? Acid pies, shadow puppet monsters, which I love. But one of my favorite gags is the pizza gag. Anybody that knows me, where they knock on the door, and they have the clowns have the pizza. The lady says, "Pizza?" And the clowns are standing there, and all of them are lined up. And my favorite clown in that scene is, they call him Fatso in the special features. He's this real fat clown. He's leaning over to the side. He's just like, that clown is the best in it. Like, they all have these individual designs, and you spot them. They look great. I love the movie. I think it's a blast. I think that most people will enjoy it. The features on here, like I said, are great. The old commentaries ported are. There's new interviews with a couple of the guys from the Dickies who sing the infamous, very popular Killer Clown song. I don't think the music video is on here. I didn't see it, and I couldn't find it if it's a Easter egg. All their old stop-motion shorts are on here as well, which is great. There's interviews from the 2014-15 Arrow release from the UK on here. Like I said, there's a couple new interviews. I didn't notice. There's a couple things I didn't notice this time around. Suzanne Snyder, I think that's her name. I didn't realize that was her in this, who was in Return of the Living Dead Part 2, which I also love. And I didn't notice that was Titus. I listened to the commentary and I was like, Titus, his first role from the show Titus, is in here as a small cameo, which was great. But I really recommend checking it out. John Vernon's top-notch in it. Royal Dano is hilarious in it. I just like it. I like the gags. It's one of a kind. It's super unique. And it looks really good and sounds really good. Arrow did a great job with this one. I love the movie, and they did a great job. If you like this one, it's a must.
Holy shit. It's no shooting star. Looks like,
circus tent.
Want to play games? You're messing with the wrong guy.
Look, we saw it. That's a fact. I'll tell you what the facts are, mister. You said people are being killed. Now, where are the bodies?
Yeah, I mean, besides clowns being frightening, to me, ventriloquist dummies have always been really unnerving. So here we combine two of my worst fears in one scene.
And we were so happy with the sound of it that we pretty much knew we had the gig.
Willis O'Brien's King Kong that just struck the imagination of a little kid. I must have been like 5 years old. And then from those 2D designs, I'll take the characters and I'll do three-dimensional prototypes, like maquettes.
It's like a bunch of loose bones.
No, you don't know what the hell you're doing. We could be going on a circle.
Just shut up! The important thing is that we get out of here!
are you in for?
Killer clowns from outer space.
There he is, I told you. You get out there and shoot him? Get him, Dave! Kill him!
Mike, just hang on, calm down. Let me check this out.
The next one here is from Avga. I always say it wrong. Afka, with a G. I always say Afka. It's just so hard for me. I don't know why. It's a tongue twister. But it is the Godmonster of Indian Flats. There's a bonus movie on here, too. What is it? The Legend of Bigfoot. Yeah, the Godmonster of Indian Flats. This is a weird one, guys. This company's always releasing the weirdest, craziest stuff. Okay, the Godmonster of Indian Flats. It basically comes out and says, you think it's a monster flick. You think it's going to be a creature feature. And it kind of is, but mostly it's not. We have this small town where there's this kind of a crazy mayor or owner, whoever, he owes all the money, and he wants to preserve this town. He wants it to be a historical town. It's kind of a southwest town with mining and everything. And, so that's his main goal in this movie. There's a scientist also out there working on weird experiments, and there's this guy, a sheep farmer out there as well, who has this weird, relationship with his sheep, I presume, and it's strange. And what happens is all this comes together when this, and goes completely insane when there's this weird embryo sheep thing born, and the scientist takes it in and starts to kind of help it and cultivate it and put it in an incubator. And up until the last 23 minutes of this hour and 28-minute movie, this sheep thing's basically standing there mutated in a hyper sleep. And it looks ridiculous, and it doesn't do anything for an hour and 15 minutes. And then after that, most of the plot is really essentially this rich guy coming in. This guy sent from a rich company who wants to buy the town out and buy all the mines and buy the locations and start digging for gold again, mining for gold again. And the townspeople don't want it. We have this, back and forth with the crooked, stupid sheriff and who's on the side of the rich guy who wants to preserve this historical town. We have another guy that works for him that's, real shady. And we have this guy who's trying to buy them out. So this is basically all this kind of business hogwash back and forth nonsense. And it's just ridiculous, to be honest. I don't know what's going on. And then the end of the movie, it gets so insane and over the top. It's like, I don't know what you're trying to say here. I don't know if this is just screw the whole damn thing and it explodes in air like Humanoids from Atlantis where we quit on set. But it feels like that. And it's just ridiculous to the point of nonsense. I don't know what your message is anymore. That maybe everybody's full of crap, but it doesn't work. Of course, the monster gets out in the last 20 minutes, and it's your typical thing. This thing's misunderstood. It doesn't necessarily want to be violent, but with all the craziness going on and escape prisoner because they set some guy up, it's complicated. You don't need to know. The monster gets out and kind of shambles and around and doesn't really do much. He does kill one person, but the end thing is so ridiculous that this would be perfect for a mystery science theater or a drinking movie with some friends, because watching it by yourself, you'll scratch your head so many times you'll have a bald spot. I don't know what's going on. It's absolutely ridiculous. I actually generally like the monster, how he looks. He's cheap, but he works. I like the cheap little monsters. He's a sheep hybrid thing, and he's mutated, and he's ridiculous. And I felt bad at the ending. I didn't understand what the hell was going on with, and the poor monster caught in the crossfire. It's just nonsense. Inspired by King Kong for 2 seconds, and I don't know what the hell is going on. Stuart Lancaster, the guy plays the historical guy. He's in some other stuff as well. I recognized a couple of the other actors, but most of them are bit actors. I don't think they've been in too much, but there's a scene for a funeral scene for a dog. If that tells you anything what's going on, Just a crazy movie. The movie on here, besides The Legend of Bigfoot, is basically a bunch of nature documentary stuff, kind of tossed together with some fake footage of some guy who filmed like a fake Bigfoot, and then it's all put with narration, and some of it looks nice, but that's pretty much all it is. It's barely a movie. There's a lot of features on here too, like weird short. There's a couple short movies, a bunch of trailers. Bus fires. The thing about bus fires, like a PSA. So they always load these things up, man, and I appreciate that they're making this stuff actually be available out to the public. But to think that these movies exist is just insane to me. But it exists, man, and it is crazy stuff. Godmonster of Indian Flats. Can I recommend it? I don't know. I don't know at all. Really, it's so weird. So weird.
Do you believe in that? You believe in the monsters? I don't believe there's a monster in the wheel. Stupid adults believe in it. Yeah. These are good hot dogs. Everybody does. Kind of dum-dum believes in monsters. Yeah. The adults are so I don't
I repeat, keep all children off the streets. All deputies will maintain 24-hour surveillance until we crack this thing
Okay, the pick a movie this time was picked by Seph, and it was Berlin Syndrome. This came out, I think, in 2017. I had not heard much about it, but, I rented it on Vudu, so I don't have a copy to show you. Berlin Syndrome. This is a hour and 55-minute movie, which kind of had me scratching my head, because reading the plot synopsis, whatever, you guys know, the plot description, I was like, okay, we have your typical, I want to leave, you won't let me leave, I'm kidnapped, stuck in this apartment, how am I going to get out of here type situation. We have this girl from Australia who's visiting Germany. She kind of wants to break away from her job and see the world. So it's very typical. I think this was based off a book, actually. And it's done by a female director. And it's written by, the book was written by a female director, but the screenplay was adapted from a man. So I was like, okay, maybe this will be a little bit different than your typical I'm trapped in a house kind of situation here. Because I've seen that a lot of times, and it's not one of my favorite genres, because after you've seen it, if it's not based on a true story, it's just not really interesting. Once you've seen it once, it's kind of the same deal over and over again. But we have, she meets this guy, this German guy, and they start a relationship, and it's a quick relationship, and things seem to be going well. But right off the bat, this German guy, he's not quite right. There's something wrong with him. He is a phys ed teacher, and after a one-night stand, he, forgets to leave the key for her to get out, and right away, she knows something's up after a couple days of her not being able to get out of here, of course, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and she kind of goes through and starts to discover more things, and hair in the drain and things like that, and you realize this may not be the first time he's done this. Well, what I'll say about the movie is that they try to paint the characters as three-dimensional, and I think that they do that very well. I think that it's shot really well. I think it looks very good. I think it's a very, very well-made movie. I think it's well acted. I think it's actually well shot too, and they managed to make scenes that look beautiful, especially scenes in the snow, especially a scene with fireworks and lighting and stuff. It's a very good looking movie, and probably some scenes even inspired by Italian cinema. It's a very good looking film. It's very well acted. It's very professional. It's very crisp. But at an hour and 55 minutes, it does tend to get repetitive at times. There's a side story with the German man and his father, and his interactions with coworkers, and you see this guy out in public and how strange he is. And there's some really good, intense moments here of where you as the audience, you know something that the main character doesn't know, and she's in danger, and that stuff works really well. You know, that's the typical what they say, like an Alfred Hitchcock deal, where there's a bomb under the table. I don't remember who was saying that, like Pure Cinema Podcast probably mentioned that, but it's a typical thing where you know something bad's going to happen, but one of the characters or both the characters don't, and they build tension very well. Very typical stuff like that. Like I said, as beautiful locations, even managing to shoot in an apartment, they shoot it really well. Out in the woods is shot really well. Like I said, I love the part in the snow scenes and whatnot, and her being trapped in this apartment. And I never wanted to kill a character so bad in my life. The German guy is so aggravating. There's times these moments of cruelty that there's just a couple moments that I'm like, oh my god, I want to kill you so bad. He just goes over, not necessarily physically hurting her, but just the emotional and stuff that he does to her is just so disgusting. But the ending of the movie is really weird and really strange, and I'm not sure exactly where they went with it, but there are some crazy moments in here. It almost seems like the guy, he enjoys photographs and has this weird collection in this weird isolated room. It's definitely, a character study on him and even on her being trapped in there, and him, his, kind of psychology. At times, he doesn't seem like such an awful person, but all in all, he is just a monster. Interesting movie, way too long at an hour and 55 minutes. It pushes its welcome, and it's not an easy movie to watch. It's unpleasant at times as well, but it's fairly solid. Like I said, it's very well made, it's very well acted, and it's just that it's not a story that I need to see for 2 hours. So that's maybe my patience just being drawn on that kind of story, but if you like these kind of stories, I think you would enjoy it. I know the director's done some other work, and I'd be interested in checking it out, but that's the Berlin Syndrome. I was interested in seeing it. It's nice to see a fresh director out there, or a fresh movie from a newer movie that had nice look to it. So that's Berlin Syndrome.
How did you choose me?
Andy.
Claire. Nice to meet you.
Why did you come to Berlin?
You know those life experiences that people talk about? Came here.
People who travel alone are usually in search of something.
What makes you think I'm alone?
I see nobody.
So quiet.
Berlin is full of these empty places.
I wish I could stay.
Are we too late? Are we too late to be blue?
I didn't think I'd be able to get back in, and then I realized that I couldn't even leave.
Is it too soon? Is it too soon to run?
Did you leave me a key?
Yes, sure. But next time, I'll tie it to the bed.
I don't care if I'm in too deep to...
No one will hear you.
Maybe life's better than just simply done.
You said you want to stay?
I'm in the door!
I texted your mother for you. You told her you're okay.
But I'm not okay.
You're all that I know.
You could do so many things.
I just want to do this.
You're abnormal.
What would be the worst thing I could ever do to you?
Love you every
Don't worry. I would never do it. How do you think this is going? From 1 to 10?
Maybe 7.
Okay, let's do the drawing for the Pick a Movie. If you want to enter, leave a comment on the YouTube, leave a comment on the Screaming Toilet, leave a comment somewhere, I'll find it, let me know, or even send me a message that says you want to enter. From now on, I'm going to do something a little different with this. If you entered last week and you didn't win, I just threw your name back in. So we'll do that so you don't miss out on stuff. You know, why not? You know, I'm not. So, like, if you got entered in and you didn't win, I just threw you in. So eventually you'll get drawn, so you'll get your movie. I feel that's more fair. Who do we got coming in? We have Christopher Dallier, another person who's won a few times. So let me know what you want me to watch. I think that James Grimmer won again last time, and he picked Vicious Lips, is it? Or Vicious something like that, the Albert Pune movie. I have the DVD, do not have the Blu-ray from Scout Factory, but the DVD will do. Let's get into the Q&A. Okay. Ben Miller, what serial killer movie would you like to see get made and released that doesn't already exist? Real life serial killer / murder case that you find the most interesting? Okay. I'd like to see I know that they probably have a couple being made now, but I'd like to see a Dean Corll case. I'd like to see a Chicago Ripper case. There's a lot of them out there that are very interesting. What's the guy, Jack Udertag or Udertang? I'd like to see a movie about him, the Austrian serial killer, because his case is so strange. He's one of the guys that got out twice. Has there been an Arthur Shawcross movie? That would be interesting. I think it's so weird that like a couple of these guys like Shawcross and Jack, whatever his name is, had 2 serial killer careers. They killed a bunch of people, they got released, and they did it again. And it happens all the time. Like, if you're a mass murderer or a serial killer, you're far beyond helping at that point. Or at least far beyond helping to be released back into society. Real life serial killer murder case that you find the most interesting. Those I find interesting. Chicago Ripper case I find interesting. And, you know, there's been so much information about a lot of the guys like Dahmer, Bundy, and Gacy. They are interesting, but some of the ones like Dean Corll, because he was killed before he could speak, or David Parker Ray are more because you don't know the whole story, and those are kind of more, to a certain extent, interesting. Nick, and Willie Picton, because his whole story has not been released to the public. Nick, as you reviewed a musical, why do so many of them feel disjointed or even false? You know, because if it's a movie that's supposed to, I mean, it's a musical. I guess I can understand being disjointed or false, but you have to buy into that world. If they're just going to break out in the song and dance, you have to buy into a world where that's acceptable. And if you can't buy into that world, then it's going to feel false. Have you ever had a conflict on set, either as an actor or as a director? If yes, how did you solve it? If not, how do you prevent trouble on set happening in the first place? I've been on like just a production assistant on stuff, and you know, one of the actors or actresses was just not memorizing their lines and didn't seem to care and was completely oblivious to them making it go on and longer, and you just don't hire that person again. To be honest, if somebody's trouble or you think somebody's gonna be trouble, sometimes you got to take a chance and hire new people or have work with new people. But if you have a lot of trouble with them, you just on an independent movie like this, like, I'm not getting paid. Just stick with the people you know and trust and that are good at what they do. Do you enjoy theater or just movies? I don't act in theater, but when I go, I always enjoyed seeing them. I just don't go typically. Lastly, favorite Shakespeare adaptation. You know what? The Shakespeare adaptations I like are probably ones that are so far like hidden that they're Shakespeare stories. But you know, I can't think of any like Shakespeare stories that I absolutely adore that are just like direct, like the Romeo and Juliet movies or anything like that. But go Theater of Blood. We'll do that one because Vincent Price kills people in like Shakespeare style plays. I guess that counts enough for me. When he feeds the critic his dogs. Come on. Christopher Dallier, favorite creature feature? I think I've answered that. There's so many good ones, man. Monster Squad count because there's a bunch of creatures in it, or are you thinking more like Deadly Spawn? I love creature features. Creature from Black Lagoon's my favorite Universal creature feature. The Thing counts as a creature feature. It's The Thing. Favorite mockumentary film? Winners Tape All is a really fun one. That one's really good and underseen. Very funny. It's kind of like about these two SOV famous brother directors. It's really funny stuff. Winners Tape All. And Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Those are the two that come to my head really quick. Dig That Cat. What is that? Be My Cat. Be My Ann. Be My Cat, a film for Ann. That one's really good too. Really interesting stuff. So yeah, those are kind of like mockumentaries. Seph, what is one of or some of your favorite films that most people hate? Oh, geez. You know, I'm pretty sure everybody hates The Item, and that's just a low-budget movie. As much as I can talk about The Item, I will. Try to think of some other ones that people just think are crap that I always enjoyed. I'm sure that people think... people like Slaughter High, but I love Slaughter High. I know it's not good. Ghoulies 2 is one of my all-time favorite movies, so... You know, I know people love them, but they're not critically acclaimed movies. Something Wicked This Way Comes, I mean, I've heard not many good things, actually, which surprises me because I always thought it was a masterpiece. So, Do you ever go to the cinema to check out new releases? I do sometimes. And if not, what are your preference for waiting for Blu-ray DVD releases? Sometimes. Do you prefer to watch stuff alone, or are you uninterested in most of the new stuff that makes it to the big screen? It's just most of the stuff I'm interested in that comes to the big screen, like Annihilation, is gone before I can even go. I just don't have time to go, and it's already gone. I live in Toledo, so that stuff doesn't last long here. Like, if you don't see it the one weekend, you're done. So, I mean, I have interest. It's just that by the time I hear it's good or that it's worth seeing, it's already out of the theater, so I have to wait. John Wilhelm, what is the most outrageous horror movie conspiracy theory that you heard of? Mine is that the poodle from the Boogans is actually the same poodle from the Boneyard. This time the poodle got revenge. That's hilarious. But, I can't think of any of those right off the top of my head. But there are some out there that are just nonsense. But, everybody's like, The Matrix and the Terminator are in the same universe. I'm like, okay, there's stuff like that. All sorts of things like that. I've heard a lot from the TV show, like the Rugrats, that they're actually all dead and they're in some weird, purgatory. I don't know, stuff like that just makes me roll my eyes. They do it mostly with cartoons because I don't know, it just seems more ridiculous that this stuff would be in a kid's cartoon. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm going to hop into the update and show you what I got. Okay guys, let's get into the Blu-rays first. This one I picked up at Family Video pretty cheap. It was $4, Chasing the Dragon. It's Wellgo USA. For $4, why not? They had a sale, so could be good. Not seen it, not heard much about it, but I think it's Korean. It's Wellgo, so it probably is. Never seen a bad Korean movie. We got Hard Boiled. Hamilton Books had a good sale. This is the John Woo movie. Hard Boiled's pretty cool, great shootouts. I always preferred The Killer over Hard Boiled, but this one's pretty cool as well. It's been a while since I watched it. We got some nice features on here as well. I'd like to revisit that one. Yeah, I got this After Midnight from Shout Factory. I had a good deal on that from Hamilton Books. This is an anthology. I'd seen parts of it years ago, but it's been forever. It's got a new audio commentary on there too, and a new interview, which is pretty cool. I know that Rebecca McHenry always has high praises for the wraparound story in this one on Shockwave, so check it out. It's been a while, like I said. I'm not sure if I ever saw the whole thing. Then we have Darkman 2, The Return of Durant. As a kid, I adored this movie. I loved the first two Darkmans. I never really got into the third one, but yeah, Darkman 2. Love Larry Drake in this one. Arnold Vasolo takes over for Liam Neeson, and it's not good, but he's okay, I guess I'll say. But there's audio commentary on here about the director. But I always enjoyed this one. I thought it was fun, very comic booky, and Larry Drake's great in it. We got another one here from Shout Factory called Dudes. I've never seen this one. I've heard always good things, and I was super happy when it got released on Blu-ray. I didn't get a chance to grab it, but got new interviews on here. It looks like so that's really cool. This is supposed to be a pretty cool movie. I know that they Brian Sauer likes this one, so that's got to be worth something. We have a Shakedown from Shout Factory with Peter Weller and Sam Elliott. That's a great combo, man. Sam Elliott's looking pretty ruggedly handsome, right, everybody? But yeah, not seen this one. It's supposed to be pretty violent. There's an audio commentary on here, so yeah, cool stuff. Shakedown, again, Hamilton Books, good sale. The Resurrected by Dan O'Bannon. This one I had the crazy German release, big one. But this one is the Shout Factory, Scream Factory release, and it was a good price. And this movie has some great special effects, and I love Dan O'Bannon. It's loaded with a bunch of features. It has a new 2K scan, so maybe it looks better than the other release. I'm not sure. But that release had a lot of features. I'm sure a lot of these are ported over. But this is a unique movie based on H.P. Lovecraft, of course. But some amazing special effects. Then we got another one, A Quiet Place in the Country, with Vanessa Redgrave from The Devils and Franco Nero from Django. So that's a unique combo right there. But I've not seen this one. This is a shout as well. New audio commentary, so that's nice. But this looks interesting. What else do we got? This was on sale on Amazon. This is Tentacles and Reptilicus in color. But I've seen Tentacles, the Italian one. Great soundtrack on Tentacles, and a great cast too. John Huston, Shelley Winters, Bo Hopkins. I'm sure there's other people I'm forgetting about. But I like these double features. You get two B movies for the price of one, and it was a good price on this one, so I grabbed it. When I see these at a good price, I grab them. Then we have, what do we got here? We got a Blue Underground, Eugenie, from Jess Franco. This is one of the 3-disc ones. It has Jack Palance in it and Christopher Lee in a Jess Franco movie. So yeah, I decided to jump on it. I'm sure it's got a good amount of features too. An interview with director Jess Franco's on there for starters. Yeah, I've not seen this one, but Lee did a couple movies with Franco. He did the Count Dracula one, which is actually a pretty good rendition of Count Dracula. We have this double feature here from Dorado Films. Finally came. Emma Puertas Oscuras. Sorry, guys. And Estigma with Christian Bolomero, who is in, Tenebra and House on the Edge of the Park. Yeah, José Larraz, who did Black Candles and what is that one? Symptoms. He did a couple other ones too. The vampire one, Vampires. So yeah, I'm interested in checking this out. It's got an 8-page booklet. It's got some other things in here, commentary on here. Yeah, I'm happy it's out. This is the first one I think I might have bought by them, so I'm interested in checking it out. I know it took forever. They had a lot of problems, but they were very transparent with their problems and let everyone know about them, so I'm glad it came finally. We have this from Dark Force, Kill or Be Killed. I just picked up the sequel a little bit ago, but this is supposed to be a martial arts movie. Not seen it. I know that Extro talked about it. And there's not many special features on here, but there are some. Doesn't look like much. What is on here? Yeah, just basically a brand new full scene by scene. They show you how they remastered it, but I've not seen this one. I'm looking forward to watching that and the sequel. We have a Code Red, The Aftermath. This looked interesting. I had my eyes on this one for a while, and it was a cheap price. It's like a post-apocalyptic movie with animation added in. I'm not sure from another movie. It just looks unique. It looks strange. It looks different. The Aftermath. Then we got this one. It's an all-night Grindhouse marathon. 6 films and a 2-disc set. Yeah. What do we got on here? I'll read them off for you. Yeah, I've not seen this. I don't think I've seen any of these movies, but we got Velvet Trap, Marcy, Hot Nights of the... I'm reading it upside down. On the Campus, and there's 3 other ones on here. The Dean's Wife, sorry guys, Sex and the College Girl, and Shut Up and Deal. But yeah, for the price, $20, 6 movies on 2-disc, I decided to check it out. Maybe Code Red will do some more of them. Now we're going to hop into the DVDs. We have Borderline with Charles Bronson, Ed Harris. I know that this one was based on a true story, and the guy was a very interesting guy. So, and they got none other than Charles Bronson to play him. I think this is what was this company? This is Shout. So yeah, I know there's no Blu-ray of it, so I'm interested. This I bought off Joe Novak, and I got a good deal. Zebra Force. I wanted to see this forever. So yeah, looks pretty cool as a Code Red release. Happy to have it finally. Family Video had a sale, like I said. I bought a bunch of digital ones, but then I bought some DVDs. They're $1 a piece. Jackals from Shout Factory. Not seen this. I know there's a Blu-ray out there, but for $1, I couldn't pass it up. The Basement. Looks cheap. Breaking Glass for $1. Why not? Monster on there. Dog Eat Dog. I think this is the one by Paul Schrader where Willem Dafoe just wanted to act like Elvis or something for the last 10 minutes and refused to not do anything else. But Willem Dafoe and Nicolas Cage, or Nicolas Cage wanted to do that, I think. But for $1, I know there's a Blu-ray, but hey, it's $1. Cute Little Buggers. Heard nothing positive about it really, but for $1, I needed 10, so it was in there. I think I have this one already, All Hallows Eve 2. But I needed that 10 spot. I got some digital codes too for $1 a piece, so you can't beat that. Then we have Saving Mr. Wu, which is a Well-Go. Not seen that one. And the last, She Who Must Burn. And that one looks pretty interesting, actually. A witch movie, maybe. I'm interested in those. I think I heard good things about this one. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the update. Now, back to the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, the update, everything. If you got questions, comments, concerns, you know where to leave them on the YouTube or the Screaming Toilet page. But, as always, thank you very much, guys, for watching, and you guys have a good one.